I don't know what's worse. Thinking of the Gruber family's final moments, or the fact that no one could ever explain what happened. There's something about the unknown that chills you deeper than anything else. Imagine it's 1922, deep in the heart of rural Germany. The Gruber family lived on a farm in Hinterkaifeck, a place so remote the nearest neighbors were miles away. The family consisted of Andreas Gruber, his wife, their daughter, and her 2 children. They were used to the isolation, living off the land. But even the most secluded homes can't hide the horrors that lurk in the shadows. One night, something happened. Something horrifying. The Grubers were brutally murdered in cold blood. 6 lives were extinguished, and the gruesome nature of the killings left investigators speechless. The crime scene itself was a mess. The bodies of the victims were discovered in various parts of the house. Andreas Gruber was found in the barn, his skull crushed in a brutal, savage manner. His wife, the daughter, and her 2 children were discovered in their bedrooms, also murdered. But what was chilling wasn't just the violence, it was the aftermath. You see, the killer didn't leave immediately. No, they stayed. They lived in the farmhouse, hiding in the attic, using the family's food, their resources, even their belongings, as if nothing had happened. How sick is that? The killer didn't run, didn't flee. Instead, they crept around, invisible, watching from the shadows for days. Neighbors reported strange sounds, like someone walking around in the Gruber house, but no one dared investigate. It wasn't until several days later that the police arrived to investigate the scene, only to find a trail of disturbing evidence. There were strange footprints in the snow leading from the house, but they led nowhere. They disappeared. The killer was either too careful or too confident. And as the investigation went on, police found strange, unexplainable occurrences. Someone, or something, had been hiding in the attic, living off the Gruber family's provisions, undetected. For years, theories swirled. Some believed it was a family member, others, pointing to a former farmhand who had mysteriously disappeared, suspected foul play. But no one ever found the killer. No one could explain why they stayed. The house became a ghost story, an unsolved puzzle that left everyone, investigators, townspeople, even the family's closest relatives, feeling more terrified than they ever were before. The strange, unexplained nature of the case still haunts me. Was the killer a ghost? Was it a demon that took the family's lives? The idea of someone living in the attic, watching, waiting, it never leaves your mind. There's something about being watched when you're alone that makes you feel like you're never truly safe. You've probably heard of it. Those ghost stories that keep coming up no matter where you are. But this one is different. I'm not telling you a story I read somewhere. I'm telling you something that could happen to anyone. Anywhere. It starts like any other night on the road. You're driving alone. It's late, maybe around 2 a.m. You've been on the road for hours. The headlights cut through the darkness, and the hum of the engine is almost soothing. And then you see her. A girl standing on the side of the road, thumbing for a ride. She's wearing a long coat, her hair hanging in front of her face. She's alone, and the road is empty. You're a decent person, right? So you pull over. She gets in. She's quiet at first. Just a soft, almost inaudible thank you when she sits down. You ask her where she's headed, and she says she's just going a little ways down the road. You nod, make small talk, but there's something about her. Something that doesn't sit right. The silence between you is growing, but you ignore it. You keep driving. As you approach her destination, you look over to tell her you've arrived. She's gone. Gone. Not a single trace. No noise. No doors opening or closing. It's as if she vanished into thin air. You stop the car, your heart racing. You turn on the lights, check the back seat, even open the door to look around. She's gone. It's unsettling, but you brush it off. Maybe she just ran off, you tell yourself. But then, the next day, you start to wonder. You do some research on the road, on that exact stretch where you picked her up. And then you find it. The girl you gave a ride to. She was dead. She died in a car crash years ago on that same stretch of road. The story's always the same. People who pick up the hitchhiker never seem to remember exactly what she looks like. Just that she was there one moment and gone the next. Some say she's trying to get home. Others say she's searching for something. And the eeriest part? Many drivers who encounter her believe they've helped her before, only for her to disappear again, just like that. What's even more disturbing is that people still report these encounters to this day. Some things just can't be explained. The Smurl family learned that lesson the hard way. West Pittston, Pennsylvania. The 1970s. A quiet neighborhood. A home full of promise and terror. When the Smurls moved into their new house, they didn't know that they were about to be thrust into a nightmare that would blur the line between the living and the dead. It started with small things, strange noises at night, a sudden chill in the air, the sense that they weren't alone. But things escalated quickly. At first, it was just whispers. Low voices they couldn't understand, but that made their hair stand on end. Then came the smells. Foul, rotting smells that would appear out of nowhere. No matter how much they cleaned, the smell wouldn't go away. It lingered in the walls, in the air. But it didn't stop there. Objects moved on their own. Chairs would shift. The smell intensified as though the house itself was becoming more alive. One night, a loud crash woke the family. They rushed to the source of the noise, but no one was there. Just an eerie stillness, an oppressive air that weighed down on them. That's when they called in paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens confirmed their worst fear. The house was haunted by a demon. Not just any demon either. This thing was powerful, vicious, and it wanted the Smurls out. The demon attacked them. They were thrown from their beds, pushed to the floor. Invisible hands grabbed at them, scratching, clawing. They were taunted, terrorized for years. And as the attacks grew more intense, so did the demon's ability to manipulate their reality. It played with their minds, messing with what was real, what was imagined. The Warrens tried to help, conducting exorcisms, but the demon was relentless. The house was cursed. Or perhaps it was the Smurls themselves who were cursed. The haunting didn't end when the Smurls moved out. There are reports of new families moving in, only to be driven out by the same malevolent force. The Smurl story didn't just make headlines. It sparked something darker. Something people have feared ever since. If a demon can attach itself to a place, or a person, then none of us are ever safe. Sometimes, the scariest stories aren't about ghosts or demons. Sometimes they're about people vanishing, disappearing without a trace. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder family's home in West Virginia went up in flames. A tragic accident, they thought. But that's not what happened. 5 of the 10 Sodder children vanished that night. The fire burned fast. Too fast. The parents managed to escape, but 5 of their children were never seen again. At first, it seemed like the fire had claimed them. But when the fire was put out, there was something strange. No remains. Not a single bone. Nothing. The police didn't know what to say. The fire had been intense, but surely there should have been something left behind, right? Something that proved the children had died. But there was nothing. As the days turned into weeks, the Sodders began to suspect something more sinister. Could their children have escaped? Could they have been taken? Rumors began to spread. Some said the children had been kidnapped before the fire started. Others believed that the children had been taken away to prevent them from speaking about something. Theories ranged from the implausible to the terrifying. But then, strange things began to happen. The Sodders started receiving letters. Some claimed to have seen their children alive miles away. Others told tales of sightings in far-off towns. But every lead was a dead end. What happened to those 5 children? Were they ever really in the fire? The answers are lost to time, but the mystery still lingers. And to this day, the Sodder family continues to search for their children, still hoping after all these years for an answer. So, what do you think? Were these just stories, coincidences, or is there something else? Something we can't explain? The truth is, we may never know what really happened in Hinterkaifeck, or to the vanishing hitchhiker, or the Smurl family, or the Sodder children. But one thing is certain. There are things out there that we'll never understand. And sometimes those things are still watching. Don't forget to lock your doors tonight.